In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where we do have a big fork in the road. For a long time now, we've seen pretty good agreement between both our GFS and European models. Now we have one that shows some cold here before Christmas, followed by a lot of warmth after Christmas, during Christmas and after. And then we have the European model, which is showing a whole lot more cold. They both show cold, but one, the European, is about twice as cold, I would say, in the eastern states between the 20th and 24th time frame, and also about twice as much snowfall as the GFS model. So some big discrepancies, but for the mid-Atlantic Northeast, snowfall threats persist. Cold air is on the horizon for the eastern seaboard for at least a 4 or 5 day period here leading up to Christmas. Again, one of those two models showing it much worse than the other, though. When we look at the first 15 days, or in other words, essentially the first half of December, we see a lot of warmth out west, like this, featuring a positive PNA, which just means warmth in the west, and this in turn causes cold to be directed towards the east, and we've seen this pattern really hold strong through the first half here of December. Depending on what happens in the final half, we may end up with a map that looks like this by the time it's all said and done. Now, as we take a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service, you can see that they are on board with colder air for these eastern portions of the nation between the dates of December 21st and December 25th. Most of that will be said and done by the time we're reaching about the 24th time frame. So most of the cold, I would say, is between the 20th and the 24th approximately. We can see really strong signals of warmth out west, though. So again, that positive PNA causing the cold to move into the east is holding strong here for this time period as well. Now, the 8 to 14 day outlook, this is the 23rd through the 29th, looks a lot different. We do see warmth in the west, but the heart of it actually being over the central states here. This is the heart of that warmth. And we do see the best chances for cooler temperatures still along the eastern seaboard during that time frame. Although I'm predicting as of right now that the 25th to 30th time frame does look quite warm for the eastern states. I think that that's going to be a wintertime thaw overall. And there's no telling how long that's going to last. It could be the 25th through the 29th, or it could be the 25th through the 5th of January for all I know. There's really no telling how long that is going to last, as we don't really get much model guidance on the back end of that. We just know we're going to enter into that type of a pattern for now. So no end in sight, pretty much, is the way to put it. Now, again, we're looking at the GFS model first. This is the less snowy and less cold of the two. We can see, however, this afternoon on Sunday the 15th, we do have snowfall persisting for a lot of Western Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, a lot of Pennsylvania, and even up into New York, actually, as we speak. We do have snow showers for the Northwest as well out here happening. As we keep going overnight, we see that snowfall is going to persist for Pennsylvania, New York, northern New Jersey, and even a bit of New England before coming to an end, giving way to a bit of a warmer day for Monday. The jet stream troughing a little bit for the West Coast, and then especially here for the central states, and then a bit of a ridge here for the East Coast. We do have a low right here. Probably a cold front extending down from it, and there probably is a warm front up here. So this is kind of the way I see the pattern right now, with the cold air kind of diving in behind that cold front. And again, as we approach the 20th time frame, this will reach the east overall. We do see snowfall still persisting for the Northwest, as we mentioned, so that's going to be around quite a bit for the time being. Tuesday is an interesting day on the 17th. We have a much flatter jet stream here. This is what we call a zonal flow, and this usually brings about average to maybe slightly above average temperatures for most everybody. The only areas that would see below average temperatures is probably this pocket in here, where we do have snowfall again for the Northwest, and even the northern plains here as well. Now, we're going to see big changes after this point in a minute, starting Wednesday the 18th, as we see this colder pattern starting to take place. It all starts with the development of that positive PNA that I make sure to mention so often, where we see a ridge out west here, trough here over the Midwest, and then still for the high temperatures of Wednesday, we'll probably be dealing with some warmth along the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast areas, but that's also going to be coming to an end here very, very shortly after this frame. We can see a lot of showery activities, even thunderstorm happening here over the boundary area between the cold and the warmth, which is fairly typical. So be on the lookout for some rainfall, even snowfall for the Great Lakes and interior northeast here taking place as this frontal area moves through. We can see that for the day on Thursday, we're seeing a much cooler pattern. I wouldn't say cold here, but cooler pattern in the east. Much cooler than it has been, at least, for a little bit here. We do see snowfall again for the northern plains, upper Midwest, and then also for the interior northeast as well, as all of this cold air is moving in. It's clear that there is a positive PNA setting up here. Warmer temperatures really prevailing here across the west, and this is what's directing the cold and snow towards the east, as it has done for the first half of December, as we mentioned. Let's keep going. I'm going to take us towards Friday the 20th, and this is when things look quite cool. Again, this is the warmer of the two models, but we still have a relatively cold look, especially on Friday here, the 20th, as cold air is kind of just freely diving here into the mid-Atlantic northeast, even northern southeast, I would say, in here. And we do have some snow showers. For a snowstorm to come together during this time, it would have to originate from here, and it would have to kind of move much closer to the coast. As of now, this wants to kind of just move straight offshore, and that's not going to lead to much of anything. As you can see, that would lead to almost no snowfall for anybody, at least not from that low. Saturday, still cold along the east coast here. Something like this is your very cold corridor. Very, very warm for the west coast compared to normal, and even for more of the Rockies, even up into the Canadian Rockies there. And some of this is extending to the Central Plains as well. Now, as we keep going towards Sunday, still cooler for the East Coast. But again, this is the warmer of the two models. We're actually going to see a more severe outlook from our second one we're going to look at in a moment. Monday the 23rd, we can see that this trough is now sort of beginning to lift off as warm air is pushing it out. So again, as we approach the actual date of Christmas, this cold will be on its way out, is the current expectations. It's still 200 hours out. There is some chance for change, but usually these temperature patterns are pretty accurate here in the medium to long range. Tuesday, the 24th here, we can see a lot of this warmth is pushing out the cold. I would say it's still pretty cool along the eastern seaboard here, but that is going to be ending very quickly. Especially we have this pretty substantial storm system moving onshore to the west, bringing snowfall to the Cascades, Rockies, Sierra Nevada. This is going to be an impactful one. We even see showers and thunderstorms here throughout the more middle portions of the United States. As we take a look towards Wednesday, Christmas Day, finally we kind of lose the dippage, and we're seeing a lot more flat jet stream activity. I guess there's a slight amount of dippage towards the east coast here in a lot of the southeast portions, so it's probably warmer the more inland you are and cooler the closer you are to the coast. But I would say we're probably near average for the east coast, if not a little bit above average. And then for these areas in here, probably highly above average. So there is a like 10 to 15 degree difference between these two areas, the positive being the warmer of the two, but they're both above average, if that makes sense. We still have snowfall occurring for the majority of the Rockies here for Christmas Day, which could be impactful. The day after Christmas here on Boxing Day, December 26th, a lot of the same, snowy in the west, kind of warm throughout a lot of the United States here. And then Friday the 27th, we get a pretty major low trying to take place across the plains. But again, it's so mild up here. I don't know if we're going to get a major winter storm from this one. For the coldest area, you have to kind of move towards the Rockies, where we do have snowfall in the Sierra Nevada, Cascades, and Rockies once again for the 27th. 28th, we do still see this major low here near the northern plains and upper Midwest. We do start to get some snowfall going from Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, even bits of Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado there as a result of that system. As we keep on going towards Sunday, we do begin to see some signs of maybe a resurgence here of this positive PNA along the west, as there's some warmer temperatures, and some of this cold is moving more towards the central states, which is usually what it does first before moving in towards the east. Let's see by Monday the 30th, and yeah, we do actually have a little bit of a trough in the east here by this time frame. It's quite minimal, but could bring about slightly below normal temperatures for some folks. We do have another low for the northwest, bringing heavy Cascade snowfall. And we actually do have a pretty nice southern jet here moving into the deep south, where we do get some rainfall for these areas around this time frame also. Now that's practically the end of the model run. Here's literally the end of the model run, and we actually end up with a trough developing once again for the northwest, a ridge here for the central states, and then it's slightly descending, as you can see, as we move towards the east. All of these lines are kind of descending here. So probably quite a bit cooler here than it is in this pocket, but still the coldest is going to be here over the northwest, where we do see lots and lots of snowfall as well. Now let's take a look at the colder of the two, the European model, and kind of just walk our way through it. We see this initial snowstorm comes and goes. Here comes that cold front. And we see an actual coastal low take place here around Thursday the 19th. So we get a low developing near Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Heavy, heavy snowfall corridor. And these pockets here, a lot more of an interior snowstorm for the east. But it comes right as some colder airs moving in. And we see Pennsylvania, especially northern Pennsylvania into upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, get slammed with some pretty intense snowfall. And it's cold 18th, 19th, and into the 20th here. But we start to cool down even more here for the 20th with some lake effect snowfall, even an interior system. And again, we have two pieces of energy, and we talked about this yesterday, the southern piece and the northern piece, and they're closer together now. We have this northern piece up here, the southern piece just right here. And if they could just inch closer together, we could easily have a low set up more in between, which would be when we start to talk about some significant snowfall, especially closer to the coast for this kind of Saturday, Sunday time frame of next week, so about 6-7 days out. But as of right now, both models are not showing that. But the one thing I will say about the European model here is this northern piece of energy does bring some snowfall to the mid-Atlantic and northeast, as well as the Great Lakes. Nothing huge, but it does bring an additional amount of snowfall after we've seen numerous snowstorms. This is when the cold really starts to move in, Sunday the 22nd. This is, I mean, substantial. The jet stream is really, really high up in the west, vertical straight down into the east. And just like this would bring frigid temperatures around Sunday the 22nd. I can't stress that enough. We are talking temperatures maybe 15, 20, 25, 30 degrees below your normal, maybe more for some spots if we see something like this. Whereas the GFS is having us much closer to like 10, 15, 20 degrees below normal. We could be talking about 10, 15, 20 degrees more below normal on this European model, which is a huge, huge departure from what's typical, obviously. We even get more lake effect snowfall going. This has been a huge lake effect snowfall year, and we're seeing more for Michigan here, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York potentially. That would be crazy. As we keep going, Monday is not much warmer. And interestingly enough, around this Monday the 23rd time frame, we do have some interesting precipitation happening here, very close to the coast. If we could get more developing here, this could also bring about perhaps a snowfall situation to the eastern seaboard. That remains unknown for now. That kind of moves off. We continue with the cold, but look at this. We get a bit of a clipper system that moves down into the Midwest. Then the deep south almost wants to become a southern slider there before moving offshore. That could be an interesting situation right there. I'll point it out. You probably saw it, obviously. But it wants to bring snowfall in kind of like this corridor, the main area of low pressure moving along this line right here. And that could definitely spell an interesting southern snowfall situation if we saw something along those lines. And this can obviously change a ton. That goes for, you know, better or worse for cold and snow lovers. So definitely could be interesting. And it comes with a really sharp area of cold air that almost wants to move up the coast too. When we see it move off here, it's just too far offshore. If this just trended a little bit further west, just like this, I mean, that's not that huge of a shift in the grand scheme of things. That would be a huge difference in the overall outcome for the East Coast. We even get some right here, New England snowfall still from it. So you can tell that if it just moved a little bit closer to the coast, we're talking about areas in here overall seeing snowfall now all of a sudden. So that could be a really huge situation. And then really we're left with a milder pattern again from the 25th here through, and that's literally Christmas Day right here, by the way. That's the high temperatures of Christmas Day. Boxing Day here, this model really doesn't have us that warm for Christmas. This is Christmas Day. I think it's going to be quite a bit warmer than that. And also after, I think, is really when the warmth is really really moving in, like 26, 27, 28 looks to be the heart of it. We do get a pretty major storm here along the east as well, at the same time as we see a major one in the west. So we see this bringing heavy snowfall to the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and Northern Rockies. Then we get this kind of tag team of low pressure systems here across kind of the Midwest, also bringing some precipitation towards the end of December. Now, for the total precipitation, we end up with a lot for the Northwest. This is a huge amount. Then a lot of the east here, we're seeing, 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of rainfall over the next 15 or so days. That would be huge as well. Let's look at the anomalies, and this is just looking really good for a lot of folks, especially the Northwest here, where there's been a lot less recently. More Midwest areas also seeing quite a bit. And the only bad news I have is the East Coast is seeing slightly below normal precipitation, but they have seen quite a bit recently, and this is still only slightly below normal, so there will be some precipitation in there. Not the worst outlook in the world. Here's the total snowfall in the GFS, and the one thing we'll see them both agree on is the snow for the West. Tons of it. The East here, we see some plowable snowfall, especially for the higher elevations, but mostly dealing with 2 to 6 inches there in the blues. We're going to see a way different story here on the European model, where we are seeing, again, similarly huge amounts out west, similarly large amounts here for the Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes, where we could see 10 inches plus in some swaths. But for a lot of the interior Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here, we are seeing 6 to 10 in the purples and 10 to 15 in the pinks. So this is a big time increase from what we saw on that GFS model. And here is that kind of diving southern slider type storm. Could bring 1, 2, 3 inches if we saw something like this happen. So we'll keep an eye on that potential storm signal around Christmas. Now, the temperature pattern here, as we take a look, a little bit warmer for the coming days, as I mentioned. Thursday here is when big changes occur. We see this cold air really just move in. Friday, Saturday, it worsens. But again, the greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal, and this is pretty much the worst of it on this model. So nothing crazy cold. That is a pretty decent cool down, but it's not significant by any means. And then we see that kind of innocently move off and give way to warmth between the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, and straight to the 31st. The European model, we're going to see a lot more significant cold. As we take a look, this is Thursday. It looks almost identical, but Friday, we see deeper cold air moving in, and by Saturday, it's very clear that this is going to be a lot more significant than what the GFS model is showing. We see really significant cold air. That's in those purplish blues, 15 to 25 degrees below normal, and the magentas are 25 to 35 degrees below normal. And we see that dive straight in for the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. Even the deep south and southeast seeing 20, 25 degrees below normal here. This is the 23rd of December. Here's the 24th, and then here's the 25th on Christmas. This one also shows warmth for the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th time frame. So regardless, we expect mostly warmth between the 25th and 30th, but apparently this model is showing a bit of colder air sticking around through Christmas and maybe a little bit into the 26th. So a little different there. Anyway, with all that being said, we're going to track all of these things. I think there's huge question marks here, obviously, regarding multiple things. So we're just going to have to continue to track it daily. So be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.